What happens when your faith and your values no longer align with the community you've called home? How do you hold on to your love for Jesus while walking away from a church that no longer feels like a safe place? In this episode of the Doula Johanna podcast, I sit down with my dear friend Leigh Watson, an incredible birth doula and a talented artist behind Doula Heart photography. Leigh opens up about her deeply personal journey of faith, loss, and rebuilding, sharing how she doulaed herself through heartbreak, uncertainty, and ultimately healing. If you've ever felt torn between your beliefs and the structures around you, this conversation is for you. I am so grateful that she agreed to come on the podcast for my very first interview episode. She's an amazing human being, and her story is so inspiring to me. I am so excited to have you here. My first guest. This is a really special moment for me. Leigh, I've known you for 5 years, and you made my life so much better in those 5 years. Meeting you was really special to me. And I want my audience to know how special you are. And I want to talk about some of the things I admire about you so much. You're also a doula. You're also a mother. You're also a birth photographer, which I find is such a special combination. And what made you stand out to me from the beginning was when I met you, that you shared with me. I remember we went on this walk on the cemetery, and you shared with me about how much you love Jesus and how much joy you get out of your faith. And I don't think I've ever met anyone who feels like that about God and religion, which doesn't say anything about religion. It's really just my limited experience, because I have people like that are very religious in my circle of friends. I am half Polish, so I know many Catholic people that are very invested in their faith, but I wouldn't say it brings them that much joy, at least not that visible to me. And I really loved hearing about this from you. And it made me feel almost envious, but especially it made me feel so happy that people are walking this earth with this kind of joy in their heart. And I would love for you to share a little bit about this with me and the people listening to this. And just tell me a little bit, like, what are the things that do bring you joy in general?
Oh, goodness. I forgot about this, actually, this walk. I mean, I remembered the walk, but I forgot the topic. I forgot that when we talked about this. And this was 5 years ago. When was the walk?
The walk was maybe 4 years ago, and 4.5 years ago.
I thought, that also sounds bold of me 5 years ago, that I would be like, blah, 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 like to someone I barely know. Because I usually am a little bit like, I don't know, somewhat like reserved talking about my faith sometimes. And, but yeah, the joy thing. So, what brings me joy? I think anything that really makes me feel like I can really get in touch with like myself and like creation in general, like being out in nature and just being able to like witness the crazy things out in the world, like the mountains, the ocean, and like birth, of course, like miracle, like really witnessing miracles. Like this, I don't know, this really like puts me in touch with just like humanity and like living on this earth. Like so many things are so hard, but it's like to see the flip side of like all the beauty. This is like really what I need to like grasp a little bit every day, like creativity, just like humans creating things and connecting. I think these are just like big parts of what drew me to doula work. So working with parents and like mothers and birth and surrounding like new life. And then eventually also like photography. It's also just like connecting with people and being able to like really witness human connection and within like families and within couples, like and also now more recently like empowerment sessions for women that I feel like are just people really connecting with themselves again and like kind of embracing the trust that they have in themselves. So yeah, this I think is, I mean, probably I could say so much more, but this was, I think, at the bottom of like really what I think motivates me and like what gives me that like energy to do what I do.
And you do it so beautifully. Everyone who knows me, like, knows that you're the only person that I feel comfortable so far in my life being photographed by. And you bring out so much. Like, for me, my husband, my whole family, like, it's been such a gift to us. We really treasure all the photos you took of us, and we will for the rest of our lives. So today, I would like to dive a little bit deeper into your faith journey, how this evolved for you. And you can start at the point in time that seems relevant to you, where you found yourself making a connection or forming a relationship with God or your faith.
Yeah. So I guess you already probably know much of this, but I guess I grew up as a kid like in a church, and I would say actually I had a really good experience at church. Like, I reckon a lot of people don't. I think some people would, I don't know, have it attributed to not very much fun, or like, I don't know, like, oh, I had to go and it was this really dumb thing. But like, I actually did not have that experience. Maybe I did on some Sundays, but what's in my memory now as an adult is like playful and fun, and I don't know. I grew up in like, as in, it was like an organ church. Like, it was not even like Lucy, like drums and this kind of stuff. Like, it was like proper, like we sat in pews and there was organ. But I always felt actually like really safe in that place. And like, I remember some of my earliest memories are like of me. We had like this balcony thing over the living room in my home in New York where I grew up. And I remember in the evenings, like my parents, I think it was like once a week, would host like a small group, and some adults from the church would like come and like bring food. And I would like lay upstairs under this like big plant, like, and just like listen to like the discussion. And I don't know, I always had like a curiosity, I think, about spirituality. And I remember like as a kid, like still like praying and like being sort of like still having an awareness of like a spiritual realm. I think as a child, like spirits and that kind of thing was not so insane for me to believe. Like, I did not have trouble being like, yeah, there's a spiritual realm. It's not just what you see and feel. It's like also there's a spirituality like in people that also can sense spiritual things. And this was like, yeah, of course, that makes total sense to me because I feel it and I was aware of it. And that's like sort of like the beginning of things, just where I found it really easy to connect with this, like with this side. I don't feel like it was hard for me. But then I would say in high school is really where I could put more concrete. It was very abstract as a kid. I think I was like, I don't know, God felt very abstract to me at that age. Like, there were some things that I could take from like Bible stories that I was like, okay, this is, I think, my idea of God. But I don't remember having a very concrete view of like how I perceive God until probably high school. My friend will also listen to this podcast. Oh, I'm just going to say who it is because I don't even, but she call out is my friend Elena, who I think,
I met her.
Yes. Wait, you did meet. Wait, why did
I
you
meet
meet
her
her?
at your birthday in Austria? Wasn't she the one?
No, that was Aliana. My dad also gets these two mixed up. Aliana and Elena. This is like he literally still can't, but I call Aliana Anna, and I call Elena Lena. So Anna and Lena instead of Aliana and Elena. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah, there's a lot of, anyway, this is Elena. And she like grew up Southern Baptist, which again, I'm not sure like how much of your audience will know these things. So I try not to use so many like terms that are like, I don't know, that hold too much like cultural, like you have to know what this is. But anyway, it's like more very conservative. And she was like the one that I felt in that point was really like, I don't know, like she just had like such a loving heart. And that was really what like, I don't know, drew me to some kind of like, I don't know, I'd say practice religion. Then I would go to like church with her more. And there I actually have pictures of like my baptism that I don't even know if I showed you. Like, I was baptized in my grandpa's pool behind his house. Super funny. But like, yeah. And she was really like, I think, and her whole family really like were catalysts and drawing me kind of more to, I would say, yeah, like Christianity and that kind of thing. And that's where I kind of like got a big foundation for like, yeah, basically how I approach different spiritual things and like the kind of lens that I see things through, I think was like very influenced during that time of my life. And yeah, and then since then it's just been more of a journey, but I feel like I want to know like how, but that's basically like the start. That's kind of how it all kind of began.
I really relate to the start. I feel like as a kid, I felt so drawn to God. And I was the only one in my family actually going to church.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
I think I told you about that. Like, I love being in churches. I love like burning candles in churches and praying. Like when I only learned about praying in school, really. Like it wasn't done in my family. And I just thought it was such a wonderful way to connect. But I think I lost the joy in it later when I don't even know how you call it in English. Like when like the children that like walk after the priest and in white robes.
For children, I don't know, because this is the Catholic thing. I don't know. Yeah. Like I'm not super familiar.
Okay, I was one of those for a couple years. Super invested, getting up in the morning, like going to church, even though nobody was joining me. And for a while, I could really like. I think it was like a meditative state for me to be there in church, like hear those same prayers and things like that over and over again. But then I just got in conflict, I think, with the priest, really. Like in some of those conversations, just some things didn't feel right. Like because he was one of those like old school people who said like a child that wasn't Baptist will not go to heaven.
Right. Yeah.
And things like that. And that really spoiled it for me. And then I lost interest and never really found myself on my way back. And then I studied biology and like, I don't know, being like in science, it was totally, I don't know, it felt like you shouldn't do anything that you cannot prove. Like if there's no data, then it's not existent. And this was this whole, for years, I wouldn't even give myself permission to go into anything spiritual.
Yeah.
And it was just so freeing for me when I met you. And like, oh, it can look a completely different way. Like religion doesn't have to be this corset or this thing that like takes your breath away. Like it can be something that really helps you experience more joy and like have more like warmth and love in your heart. And I just really, really loved that. And at the same time, a couple of years later, after we met, I experienced the heartache that you went through, like, and the really hard story. And I wonder if you would be willing to share this a little bit, because since you told me the story and I could sit there like just in the trenches really, like, but like rooting for you and hoping for you to find a way, like it really touched me, because I thought like I'm 100% sure that the loneliness and isolation you felt during that time is not unique to you. I'm so sure that there are more women out there that need to hear someone tell that story. And I know it's not easy to talk about. And I totally understand if you want to share as little or as much about it as you want to. But my dream would be that a woman who's like feeling similar to how you felt a couple of years ago can find the story online and feel empowered and encouraged that she can find a way out of this. And I want to stop being cryptic and let you tell the story as much as you want.
That's a lovely introduction. And I think, because I guess people that would listen to your podcast already listen to the women's group.
Who knows?
If not, go do it. Because it's so touching and I loved it. And as in we are like in a women's group together. And luckily for me, I had support, because I think when you go through like really big shifts in life, like especially with like, we're like, especially like a big grounding, anchoring force, which was my faith and my church community. Like when you have that ripped out from underneath you, and for many people that would be in my position, like we wouldn't have anyone else. Like we would you're sort of like almost in a bubble sometimes in those circumstances, that like the people you would reach out to are the people in that community. And sometimes they understand, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're empathetic, sometimes they're really judgmental, like, and it actually isn't necessarily always the safest space to like come and be within that sort of like that bubble or that community going through this. So I super feel for people mostly that go through this, because many people do not have what I had, which was like a very supportive family and also a very supportive women's group who, even though you guys were like, what is going on here? You were all like, I don't know, I felt like I had a space that I could really go and really be myself and like share all of my heartbreak and like my concerns and nobody was like there to give like advice or be like, oh, you should do this, but just like a space to like receive and like hold space for me while I was the one who had to do all the work and like really land somewhere. So yeah, so when I first came to Munich, I was at a church and I definitely, I think today, like, don't want to ever make it seem like I'm not a black and white person anymore. I think I used to be more prone to this style of thinking, but I don't want it to be like, yeah, and they're the, this was the bad thing and now I'm in the good thing. And I don't want to like, I want to try today to like not label stuff and like also for myself, not to label like myself. Like, it's just, this is like my effort now is like observe myself and try to be less judgmental about the decisions I made during other parts of my life. Cause was doing the best I could then. And I want to be gentle with also that version of myself, who thought I was doing the right thing and thought I was in the right place and, didn't necessarily know how to deal with some situations or like have the courage to speak up. But I landed in a space where I was like in a new country, in a new place and trying to find some connecting factors. I think many expats arrive wherever they end up, I'm American coming to Germany. This whole thing can be different the other way around, right? German going to America, but you try to find a community where you like have connection and where you feel like understood and where there's commonality. And for me, that was a lot of times like a faith community, like, and that's, I think, why I just was like, yeah, I want to find a church. I want to land somewhere. And when I found this church, I was like, oh, this is like, international community, sort of similar beliefs, obviously, like, not everything was super aligned. Like I remember even from the get-go, I was like, I don't know if this is like super what I believe, but the community was so wonderful. Like to be, to feel like I had a home again, like in a brand new country, I think was sort of outweighed, anything that even at that point that I felt like, I don't know if I am on board with this, but like,
so you're also really involved, right? Like you make music in the church. Like this is the church where you met your husband.
Yeah, this is the church where I met my husband. Funnily, we both were on the music team there, and I was super integrated, like and involved, and all this kind of stuff. And I was young, I was 21, 22 when I first moved, and then I was just coming out of like university, and I did a semester in Finland, and I don't know, like quite not stable, right? Like as in I was here, then I was here, then I was there, and then landed kind of in Munich and wasn't even sure if I'd stay. So that's where I kind of found my footing, I think. And sort of at that point, I could start to feel a little bit like about some teachings not on board, like, but there would be this kind of thing where they're like, well, this is biblical. So if you don't believe this, then what you're thinking is not biblical. And I was like, that's okay. So then I would kind of, even during that point, I can remember there was some sort of, I don't know, shame or like there were some things around certain beliefs that I didn't feel convictions on, but that I was sort of being told like, you should actually have a conviction on this. And this already started a little bit of this kind of pulling and tugging inside of myself that I already felt quite like not necessarily brave enough to like bring up to people and be like, I don't know if I agree, because I was like, well, I don't want to be freaking, judged. I was like, so it was the beginning of me quieting myself, I think. And just being like, well, I don't know if this is what they say is right. And what the heck do I know? And then I'm probably the one who's wrong. So
could you give one example?
Yeah. So I think the one where it started was probably, I think, women in leadership positions, I think. I think this might be the first one that sort of was like, for me, really hard to understand. And just from my experience in the faith and like the church I grew up in, which is where I did see many women in like leadership positions, and I felt very like inspired by the women around me that were in the faith, that I was like, all of a sudden I don't have that really, like, or I'm not seeing this like from the pulpit or in different things, or like, from in a small group, like women leading a small group or whatever. Like it just all of a sudden wasn't present, like it wasn't there, and really made me be like, I wonder why this is. But then, of course, they would, this in the Bible, and this is why this is not right. But then I was like, okay, if this is the only opinion, then like, why does it feel weird. Like, but I just thought I'm wrong, gaslighting myself into being like, don't look into this. Like, if they say, then they're the authority, and then that's what it is. And this like lack of trust, I think, in what was coming up for me. But
Sorry.
but yeah, so this is that was like the first issue that sort of got me a little bit like interested in digging a little bit more. But then I remember I had like a talk with the pastor at the time, and I remember walking away from that conversation being like, there were a lot of things said. None of them made sense to me. I'm even more confused, if anything. Like, and then I just was like, I guess I just have to let this go. Like, I don't know. Like, what else can I do besides leave like on one thing? Like, this is crazy. Like, to leave an entire like community of people and like family, like, it's just not worth it, you know? But then I guess this would be like then going into like the church conflict that I went through, which like without getting like anything crazy into, it's like was just basically like I was then drawn into a situation that I felt very clear on, like very clear, like this is absolutely not right. And of course, then there were people on the other side that really thought it was okay. Or like, then there were people that like, were like, I'm not even getting involved in this. I don't even want to like look at it. Why is this even a thing? Like, just forget about it, move on. Like, why are you making a thing of this? But I think this was like the first point that I was like, there is something deeply like red flaggy in my soul. That's like, this is not okay. Like, and I had let, I think, many things slide by that point. But I think this was like, it was the pandemic. I had just given birth to my third kid. We had just moved house. And there was some kind of straw that absolutely broke the camel's back, where I was like, I can really tolerate a lot. But there is something in that situation that I was like, it's just like, there were just too many things that I think piled. And that kind of then ended up snowballing me into somewhat of like, well, if this isn't true, and if they had my best interest, but if they would do something like this, then what else were they not, you know, forthcoming with me about, or what else could they possibly be wrong about? Because if I can't trust their hearts and like their moral compass on these things, like, you know, and so this really sent me like spiraling into this process called like, which I feel like it's a dirty word in the church, but like it's called deconstruction, where you really begin to like your like, I guess the systems that you've built of like safety and the things that you thought were true start to unravel because one thread is pulled, which shifts the entire picture, basically. And then you really have to go in and look at every thread and be like, is this still relevant? Do I still believe this? Is this still connected to something foundational? Like, am I still anchored in this belief? And that's really where the kind of process started for me. And I was like, how can this be? Like, I was trying to make sense of it, right? Like, your brain is like, something is just not computing, and your brain starts to break down. Like, like when some big foundational belief in your life is challenged, I think this really causes tons of things to domino. Like, it doesn't just happen in a container. This whole process for me touched everything, and there was not anything in my life that it did not touch. Like, which now in hindsight I can see as like a positive thing. But in that moment and during that year, it touched everything because it was so negative. So everything felt tainted and like lackluster, and I had a really hard time like getting in touch with my joy again. Like, and like there was just nothing that it did not touch and wreck and spread and like poison and make toxic, and all of that, like me trying to stay afloat. I had you guys that got me through it.
So glad that we got to be there and witness you.
It was really hard. But I had anchors that I really did, like, and during that time of like super questioning things, like I still felt like so anchored by God. Like, even during the time, like shockingly, like I could really detach like my understanding of who God is from the drama, like from the from the things where I was like, this is not of God. Like, whatever the heck that is not my experience of like who I know God to be. And luckily my brain could do that. So like I didn't have to fight so much. Some people don't have that. Like, if it's so tied up, But I think luckily I had a very, very strong foundation from my childhood and just from my initial experiences with who God is, of like God being good. And this was not good. And the things that people were saying and doing were also not good. So I was like, this is not of God. This is a whole separate problem that like somehow, luckily for me, could stay quite like removed from my faith. Like, and luckily it never reached down to this. Like some people that deconstruct really go down all the way to the bottom and are like, do I even believe in God anymore? And I totally like can empathize with people that go through that. Cause I'm like, yeah, sometimes when things are too tied up, you really have to go all the way back down. But luckily for me, it stayed kind of somewhere here, where I was like, no, I don't believe that God would be like, yeah, like seeing this and go like, you do deserve this. Like, I never thought that. And I never thought that God was like, I did feel like God was like trying to help me through it and was in that situation, even though it was like very hard to see sometimes. I was like, where are you, Jesus, and all of this. But yeah, I did feel very anchored by that. I felt very anchored by you guys, that I could come and be like, like, I don't know what to do anymore. And just then you guys really, again, not like advising or be like, yeah, you should da-da-da, or like, you didn't obviously know anyone in the situation or the whole thing. Like
we had no experience,
like,
right? None of us is in a church community.
Yeah.
None of us really understood what it means to lose that.
Yeah.
Like for us, it was really like, wow, this is so hard, so unfair. No way that this is okay.
Yeah.
And but we could not understand to deep level what it meant for your life. Like,
yeah.
And in hindsight, I just think I cannot believe your bravery, your courage to still stand up and still like speak your mind.
Yeah.
And
this like was a journey. And at that point, I did not feel brave like at all. I felt like a coward many times. It's like, oh, I should have said that, or I could have done this, and I didn't. But again, like I also have to like go back and be like, I did the best I could with what I had. And did I handle things perfectly? Heck no. Like there were many things I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? I was acting very like emotional because it was such an emotional thing. And I think many people were, it's just so hard. And so I have a lot of like, I think I can have like extend a lot of grace to myself and also everyone else involved, like to go like, I don't want to harbor any, like, oh, it was me against them or this against, it's like, in the end, doesn't matter. Like we all, I think it happened how it happened. I like have forgiveness for all the whole thing, how it went down. I was like, I could understand at some point why things happened when I was in it. I was like, I couldn't get far enough away to observe from it far, where I was like, why are they doing this? Now I'm like, okay, now it makes sense to me a bit more. Like, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I can understand it. Which also just helped to move forward and be like, this is actually not my problem. And this has actually really nothing to do with me in the end. This was like really their own thing. And like, I didn't need to take all this on like I did. But anyway, so yeah, that was kind of like a big start in my journey to get back to like the center of like, what do I truly believe? Not what was taught to me or what like I feel like I'm parroting because it's like right, but like, do I feel it? Like, do I really truly believe this? And that was for me the real turning point that in myself, that I was like, go back and really honestly think, do you believe this thing? And if you don't, then open it up, dig, go look. And I also just like, there's, I think, some stigma on people who do this. They're going, you're just trying to take the easy way out. Or like, I don't know. There's a lot of perceptions on people who find their way somewhere else, maybe like away from the religion that they grew up with or whatever, that they just were, I don't know, like lazy, or like you're just trying to feed your sinful spirit or whatever, like, because you wanted to believe this, so you like find excuses to believe it. And I'm like, if I've known anyone who's ever gone through this was not the easy way out. This was the horrific trudging through the freaking mud, like Frodo through the swamps to Mordor. Like, that's what it felt like for me at the time. I was like, I really wish I did not feel like this. I really wish I just would like go sink back into my like little happy bubble of like ignorance. And I wish I could go back in some ways. But yeah, obviously now I'm like, God brought me through that on purpose. I'm apparently not an easy learner. And God's like, you must learn this the hard way, because I tried to like help you and you did not. So now here we are. Like, not like that God was happy to bring me through that. I don't think that, but like, I think it was necessary for me to come to the other side. And I think that's how I think we learn a lot of our life lessons is through trudging and the challenges. Like many of the things that I think we're the most proud of were not the things that came super easy or like that just were not like easy. They were through struggle and pain and like hardship and fighting and like persevering. And this, I really feel like what I have now, like my faith is like hard earned. Like I don't feel like it's unstable or like based on somebody else's opinions. I was like, this is really tried and tested, like down to like the nitty gritty. Like I walked the dark road, and regardless of like people, having their own judgments on it, which I definitely had, like for sure, people that were very, very like well triggered, but also just like that just super didn't agree and were like very concerned for like my walk and my faith. But again, like I just had to keep coming back to like, I don't want to just pacify people with easy answers and go like, just like, it's okay. For sure. I still believe that. Like, and no, like, I don't want to do that. I mean, with some people you just go, I don't want to get into like a whole thing, but like with my close friends, I wanted to be honest. And those were just hard conversations. Like they were not easy, but the friendships that like are still there for me and like supportive and like, these were the people that really walked through it and that tried like to meet me where I was. And even though it was hard for me, hard for them, I'm sure. And now kind of where I've landed on the other side is like, I mean, it's not even comparable to what I had. Like, it's something that really is mine. Like, it doesn't just belong to like this community, right? Or like this bubble. Like, this is truly like, it's my relationship with God, like my faith. And I feel such a sense of like autonomy and ownership over it that I didn't have before, that I was always a bit more like looking around, like somebody please tell me the right thing or what to do. Now I'm like, okay, God, like I trust that like I am like creating your image. Like I have your spirit within me. Like you've given me all I need to be able to like know the answer to this. Like if I really honestly think through this and really like dig, like I trust that God will like lead me to clarity and like to trust. Like I don't know. And this I think is really new for me and has not just stayed right there. It's everywhere now. So it's in any situation, like with a friendship, with my children, with my husband, like any other circumstance, I can, instead of going like, I don't know, what are the answers? Like somebody do this for me. I can really like drop into like myself way easier and go like, well, what do I actually like honestly think about this situation? Like, what do I really think about this? And that trust that I've developed like in myself is like the treasure, I think, of the journey, and just God being like, so much bigger, I think, than what my perception was then, that I was trying to like fit God into a box that I understood. And I think there are just many things now that I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I think I have an opinion on that, but I would not, like, I don't want to like fight with people about stuff because I'm like, I have my convictions. I know what feels right for me. Could I be wrong? Sure. And that I think would have been very hard for me to admit then, because it's just in that the faith kind of idea, or like the culture I was in is like, you should have an answer for everyone that comes to you. And, which is based off a Bible verse also, but like, which I feel like I would have an answer, but I just would want to hold it with quite a lot of tenderness. And like, I will tell you what I think. I would have an opinion on many things, but like, I just want to always turn it back to being like, this is my opinion. This is what I've gathered from many things and many resources and my own like inner relationship that I have with God. But like, if you see it different, this is, I think, freedom within like the Christian faith that I think should be there, to have disagreements, to not see things 100% eye to eye and go, I don't have to have judgment on you. Do I think you're right? No. But do you think I'm right? No. But it's okay, because like actually the unity within, I think what Jesus would want for his church is for me like more important than like being so certain and 100%. And if you don't agree, then you're wrong. And we need to like fight about this and like really have it out. And like this just, I'm super uninterested in this vibe. Like, it's like, this is not it for me.
I read this sentence somewhere the other day. It was like the only really honest sentence we could ever say is, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
But this is really true in every situation of life. Like even the things that are like proven beyond a doubt, like with science and so on, like it only gets us as far as science is today with the methods we have until today. And I feel like this is probably true for so many areas in life. And what I really love about how you describe it is how much empathy you really have for everyone else and where they are in their journey, and that you never perceive your own journey as superior to others, like to other like people in their faith, right? Like that you can really extend this love that you have for humans to like every state that people are in at a certain point in time, even though this was not necessarily extended to you by a lot of members in your community, right? Like that you had, like, as you said, like many really hard conversations and people who basically like excluded you out of their lives. Like it was like they can't walk alongside you anymore.
Yeah.
And that must have been so painful after like decade-long friendships, like people whose babies you care for and like families you knew well and all those things. And you can still be so open, and it's not even about forgiveness, right? Like I don't ever perceive you as someone who feels like I have to extend forgiveness to someone. Like you really, this is just me, and this is the love I have for the world, and nobody is excluded in a way. Like you're good at setting boundaries, but you're still like really accepting people with like who they are and where they are at a certain point in time. And I think that is such an incredible thing, like that you can walk away from this experience without bitterness and without like hate. And
this was a process, I have to say. Like I don't want anyone to walk away and be like, oh, it didn't go like this for me, like, and I didn't do it as well. It's like anyone, as in you, walked through this, and you know that this was not just like an overnight thing. I think it took me years, I think, to really like release and let go of a lot of judgments I had on people. Like, I mean, going through it, I was like, how could they and call themselves this and that? And it really like took some time for me to go like, like I tried to, I changed people's minds and reason, and it's like, and none of it worked. And that, of course, is frustrating, I think, for any person. It's like, why can't you just see what I see? And they're on the other side going like, why is she just not seeing what I see? I mean, everyone's been in an argument that's like this, that you go like, man, we cannot find common ground, and this sucks. And it doesn't feel good, like, to have that with people that you really feel like you should, like within a church community or family, or like, it's just such a disorienting, destabilizing thing to feel like, when you're like, I try to find every way through and there is no way through, and you just sort of give up and go, I have to relinquish control here. I will not change their mind. They will not change my mind. And either we find a way through this and accepting this, or we go our separate ways. And I think for some people we found a way through, for some people we didn't. And I think that's just part of the journey also, of like trusting myself, and me being like I would like to say recovered people pleaser, but I'm recovering people pleaser. I'm not recovered. I do try. I have to make an effort, like wanting everyone to be happy and everyone to feel like, I don't know. Like, and I go, sometimes I just have to be like, I don't agree. Like, I really don't. And really like let people know that, and then also then have judgment on that, like, and be okay with them going like, I don't like you, I don't like your whole thing, this whole thing I don't like, and then walk away and be like, and like let them go, right? Like, go, it's okay. Like, there are some people that are really going to be for you, and there are people that are really not going to be for you. And this is like also just acceptance I had to find, and like being disliked, the discomfort of that, like people being like, I just don't like you for who you are. At the bottom of your beliefs, I don't like it. Like, and people that knew me, right? Like, or I thought like knew my heart, and then were like, like discrediting her, like going like, I don't know, because of this, like, I put your entire being into question. Like, is your heart even good because you believe this? Like, that was a really intense thing to be on the receiving end of. But in the end, I think it's not about other people's judgments or their perceived, of my goodness or not goodness or whatever. Like, it was like, in the end, like, do I have the convictions that I have? Like, really, I only have to be before God in the end anyway. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and God knows my heart. And why am I fussed about what they think about my intentions or my, like the things that are causing me to do what I'm doing? If they are pulling that into question and I think that I'm doing it in like a, I don't know, to like make people's lives harder or like to be a horrible person, then I'm like, that is their perception of me. So that's also okay that they think that. I don't need to prove them wrong. I don't need to fight anymore to like prove myself, because I know in myself and also before God that I was like, I know what my intentions are and I know that I mess up. And if they can't also move past that or like forgive me for like my missteps, the things I misspoke, whatever, that I didn't do it perfect, then I'm like, it's okay. Like I have to just really like let it go. And this is why I just think this whole topic, like, it's not just for this circumstance. Like this is, I really feel like, which is why I thought it's really important to talk about. And you were totally right. Even though when you first said like, I would talk about this, I was like, go, like, uh-oh. But I think the fact that you really are like, this is a relevant message, I think, for many women and for many people. Like even I felt such kindred spirit with so many like of my gay friends that also had to go through somewhat of a similar process. And I would never compare it to the extent, because I think it's a much different thing and much more intense to be like gay and have to come out. But like I do have some kindred like connection with people that have had to like leave systems and completely like reroute themselves somewhere else and like and really dig down and find out like, what do I really believe? What do I really think? Where am I? Where do I arrive on this topic? I think is, especially if it goes against the grain. And I think many of us have had to do this, you know, in really different areas, right? Like it could look super different, but this was really where my big, I think, moment happened, was within my faith and like, refining that.
And when I try to think about like, what were the factors that would give you the courage to do it against all like those odds and like doing it, even though it will be hard, would you say like that having like, for example, like having a family who would support this decision, right? Like I feel for some people the costs would be too high because the marriage wouldn't survive it, the family wouldn't survive it, right? Like if some other women would say like, okay, I cannot support this anymore. This is not in alignment with my beliefs. Their partners couldn't support them or wouldn't support them. Like, and I feel like this is something that is very special in your marriage. That like, even though I think it wasn't easy on your husband either, right now,
it was, everyone was affected, I think. And like I said, you can't go through these kind of destabilizing experiences in life without like in a bubble, compartmentalizing it and going like, I will just deal with this huge thing over here, but like every other aspect of my life will stay the same. It doesn't, like, it just won't. And I think luckily I married someone who really, I think, he did not marry me just because of my beliefs. He did not just marry me because of, those things. I think he married me. And I mean, sometimes I feel like, I wonder if I do ask him, like, do you regret you married such an unpredictable, crazy person? But like, he, I think, often tells me like, that's why I married you, because I like that you're exciting and unpredictable. But I'm like, at that point, I think he was like, maybe this is a bit too far. But I think at least he tried. And was he fully in alignment with everything where I've arrived? No. And, that's also fine for me. Like it was never a point that I'm like, I'm on this other side now, everyone must agree with me and I will not be friends with people who don't agree. And like, this is the exact problem that I was trying to get away from. This whole, like, everything must fit in a box. Everything is black or white. There's a right or wrong answer to everything. And if you don't have the right answer, like, you might go to hell. So be careful. Like, this was, I think, I don't want this mentality anymore. I try to get away from this. And if I were to turn around and just reverse it from the other side, like, this is so not the point. So, I think going through that, like, especially during my crazy time where I was like inhaling books, like, it was not healthy, I think, at that point. But like, I was anything I could get my hands on the topic of like the two biggest ones that ended up coming out of like my deconstruction were, of course, the the women's rights and like just in general, like, I don't know how to even call it, but like being gay, same-sex marriage, I don't know, whatever. I don't know how to like put it under an umbrella, but like these two big things that came out of it for me that were hinged somewhere that I felt like I just want to understand what actually like more about this. Like, I want to understand both perspectives. I want to understand the sides. I want to dig anything out that I could. And yeah, it was like, I don't know, more than a year probably, that I was just like digesting so much information. And I would often want to like unload on him, and he'd be like, what the heck? Like, come home and be like, and I think for him, he was like, this is super intense. Like, this is a lot, like, to take on. And in some friendships, it was also super intense for them to like be on the receiving end of my processing during that time, where I was just like, this information, my brain's trying to be like, what is it? What do I think? And that was hard for him. I think that was really challenging, because where I arrived on some things, he's like, he's not there, or like, we are at different levels of this. Like, but again, in the end, I was like, what is the important like thing here is actually like, I want unity in my marriage. I don't want to be fighting over these difference of opinions and whatever, like Bible verses. I was like, this is not the point. Like, actually for me, I was like, do we love and care for each other? Do we love and care for God? Do we want to be like in a church community? Yes, yes, and yes. Like, what are the values that we have as a family, like raising our children? And those things were all still aligned. So I was like, you have to really just, I think, concentrate on those things and not concentrate on all the things that were aligned, and go like, this must mean something if we don't agree on every single one of these points. Like, and that's kind of where I was like, this is what I want in my life. Like, I don't need to agree with everyone. I don't need everyone to agree with me. But like, is there at the bottom like a deep love and concern for each other, and a deep respect for other humans in a conversation? And I was like, if we can maintain that, then I'm like, I'm a go. Like, I'm a yes, let's do it. And he luckily was a yes in the end. Like,
and you were able to find a new church community.
Yeah.
How did you go about that? Was that like a matchmaking process? Like, how?
I thought I was very pessimistic because I had only had one experience here in Munich. I wasn't church shopping or church hopping, whatever. I arrived at this church and I thought, cool, international people, Christians, bing, bada, boom. That was for me, like, my standards and my, like, it has to be this were not super high. Like, they were like, I want to connect with people and I want to like be somewhere where like I can worship. And that was very much the extent of it at that point. And this time I was like, I was very like pessimistic. I was like, go after coming out of this whole like conflict, and then sort of the dust settling, and then on the other end of this deconstruction process, deciding like, I don't feel aligned here anymore with enough things, that there's too much tipping the scales for me, that it's not just one or two things that I'm like, I'm not that aligned with. I don't feel seen or heard, or like I could be open. I don't feel like I will be received here if I say this or feel like this or think that, like, this will not be very welcome. And that's where I at some point like was like, I need to feel safe again, like to be able to actually be honest and open, and like I can really have these conversations out. And even if we don't arrive somewhere on the same footing, it will still be okay. And this will not like, absolutely, the whole castle will not fall down from this. Like, and I needed to be in a community where I felt like I could ask questions. I could say what I really think and voice my feelings about things, and not feel terrified to be like judged, like my entire faith journey judged because of this one thing that I think, or two things, whatever. Which was a real, like, it was not in my head. Like, it was a real, as in I had been on the receiving end of some conversations that I was like, that went horribly, and this feels awful. And I don't want to be in conflict with people about this stuff, because I'm not trying to change their mind. They won't change mine. Like, what's the point, of like arguing this stuff if neither one of us are really like, I'm not looking, for somebody else to change my mind. I'm like, God will do that. So like, I'm open to like hearing every opinion, of course, but I'm like, if you're trying to you want me to be different and you need me to be already there and I'm only here, I can't do it. Like, I have to be honest with where I'm at, and I need people to like also receive that. And I also want to receive people where they are. Like, you just have to. You cannot force people along journeys and paths that they're not there yet. So it's a lot of like grace for every season and every step. And I just needed to be in a space where I'm like, can I be held and like received with where I am, which is like all messed up, jaded from some experiences, having some trauma now, still in a period of like questioning, not able to really offer a lot. Like, I'm not pouring from a filled cup. I'm like depleted. I don't have anything else to give. And I'm just a little bit broken, and I just want somewhere safe to be and land. My expectations were not high, unfortunately. I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know if I'll ever find somewhere that will receive me like I am and like will be okay with me thinking these things and still being in the community and like serving. My hopes were not high, honestly. I was like, God, I don't know. I'm kind of giving up here, but I'm not going to officially give up as I'm like not do anything, but like I will like do the things and like expect nothing. Like I will expect things to like not align and they will not receive me like with what have been my experiences. I was just thinking that's been my experience. And so it will continue to have these experiences until I die or give up. Which was, I was not in a good place. I was not optimistic. But weirdly, there were like a few circumstances, and I'll try to like be brief. But an old friend came back to Munich to visit who used to live in Munich. And I had a conversation with both of them. And he is a PhD, as in he studies, at that point he was studying the influence of angels and demons in the Old Testament. I remember being like, what a crazy thing to write a PhD about. And I was like, that's wild. Anyway, so he like is studying, like he was in seminary, and but I always were like, they went to a different church than I did. And I remember thinking like, they've got a bit different ideas than I do, or like than were accepted at where I was before. And I remember thinking like, man, these people like really love God and are like so joyful. And then they were only for then they left. And their daughter I taught in their kindergarten, and she used to like run around the room with her like arms open. Like, I don't know if I told you this, but like she would like after the classes would be like, I'm just hugging Jesus. I love God. And all the kids would just be like staring at her like, what the heck is going on right now? So like more charismatic and like her interaction with like Jesus and like with God. And I was always like, oh, it's so free. That's what you go, girl. I was like, that's so cool. And I don't know. I just was like, any kid that's brought up with that kind of like freedom, I was like, that's pretty great. So I was like, that the kid just feels so like uninhibited in their like spirituality and just wants to whatever run around the room with their arms open. I just was, I don't know, always very like, I don't know. There was something that moment, like literally, and I don't know if I thought it was so significant when it happened, but it's the fact that it's still with me, I think was quite significant. That I was like, look at that freedom and that joy that person has, and like a 5-year-old body. I was like, that's so cool. It's so cool. So they ended up coming. I ended up chatting with them, told them like the whole story, and then she was just like, Leigh, like actually, I think, and I would say again, I don't like these labels, but like that has like more progressive beliefs. I don't like labels, but just would have a little bit more or less of the typical kind of like conservative. Like it is like, yeah, if you were to vote conservative, like all of the across the board, these issues, which I was like, some I align, some I don't, and I was like, I'm in this weird middle phase where like some things I haven't thrown the whole thing out. I was like, many things I'm still very like in agreement, but there are some things that aren't. And this would be like, where the heck do I fit? I don't fit all the way over there, all the way over there. Like, I don't fit anywhere. Like, I don't know where I belong anymore. And I don't want to give up the things that I still do believe, but how can I like hold all of it? And she was like, I think you should talk to my friend. And, which I did. Like, I met up with her and told her not the whole story, but like, cause it's very long. So I just was like trying to be not, as in there's so much to say, right? And I'm already saying a lot and I'm trying to like bring it in. And just how she received me. And in those things, I was like, there were many things that I would like, at least some things to be aligned, or at least would like to be accepted for what I think, even if the church isn't super. I mean, I don't even need it to be that I love everything, the music, and we agree on everything and all of it. It's like, I don't even need that. My standards are not so high, like, but I need to be somewhere where I can be like accepted for the things that I do think and where I'm at in my journey and all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to be a safe place to like take my friends who some were not straight, like, or were questioning, or I don't know, or just like having different opinions about stuff. Like, I wanted it to be a place where I could feel safe to bring people like that would be received and wouldn't just be like, well, you don't fit here and you have to like now squeeze into this box or else you're sorry, but like you don't then belong, and so I went to Hope Church, which is like where I've ended up, and I met with the pastor. I wonder if he'll ever hear this, but like I I was just like word vomiting a lot in that phase of my life, like where I feel like I have no control over what comes out of my mouth, which was interesting. And I remember like sending an email and just being like, well, I'm just going to say everything. I'm just going to get it all out, all the unpopular opinions that I have that like would cause maybe a church to be like, yikes, please don't. I have trauma. I went through something crazy. Like this was very destabilizing. I went through the deconstruction process. Like I do believe women should be able to teach and be involved in like in authoritative positions in church. Like I don't have problems with people being gay. I was like, I really hold so much love for these people. I was like, I don't want to be in a church where this is like actively preached against or like, or even if it's like preached against, isn't they're saying like, it's my opinion that this and that regardless, they would be safe there. Like, this was super important to me. So I blah, an email and he was like, let's meet up. I was like, oh geez. And I was expecting like, my expectation, I was so nervous. Like, I was so nervous. I was like, it's not going to go well. He's going to be like, well, this isn't very biblical of you. So like, I need to like correct you now. And it was the exact opposite. He was like, look, I don't agree on some of these things, right? Like, he's like, but I can at least tell you, my wife is prophesizes and teaches. So he's like, it would not be okay in my home to like ever think this about women. So he's like, there, I'm totally behind you. He's like, regardless of, points A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like, I don't see eye to eye with you on some of these things, but he's like, for me, this is like unity is more important. I can't remember exactly what he said. And I don't want to like misspeak or misquote, but in any case, I can say that I walked away feeling extremely held and like emotionally like this is a man actually who I can say everything to and won't make me feel bad about what I believe and respects my convictions and will continue to respect my convictions. And I was like, this is something I have not felt in a very long time. And I just immediately like then went to the church, walked in and was like, this is home. I was like, this is, wow. I feel so safe here. And I was like, I never thought I'd have that again. I really was expecting like, maybe God's like, you're going to walk on your own for a while. But God was like so gracious then because he was like, I could have, but instead God was just like, I'm going to give you this thing. You don't expect it. It's not even in your brain that it could happen, but it's going to, and my standards were like low. It was like, I just want to be somewhere where no one actively hates me and like actively is going to like tell me they think I might go to hell or whatever. I was like, I just want to be somewhere that I can like fly under the radar and they just let me do my thing. But instead I received such like, like over received, like immediately into like the bosom of this community, like in a way that I don't know. I never expected it. And it just was like, it's just a pure blessing for me to feel finally like I can be my full self. They know what I think and they still like me. Like they still, like, I don't know. Like I just felt like I can be my full self here and I don't need to like hide parts of myself. There's so much more to say about this. I just don't know how much time we have. Like,
unfortunately, we will have to wrap it up soon. But I am, first of all, so grateful that you shared so much of your story. I'm so happy for you that this is where you ended up. Like, I can see it in your eyes. And I especially like witnessed this transformation in you. I feel like the last 2 years, you've grown into yourself in a way that is incredible. I feel like you are really filled with this like zest for life, with this joy. You're like, there's so much courage. Like it reminds me a little bit of like women who give birth, right? Like I don't think they can do it before. Yeah. And then they do it. Yeah. And then like, watch me. Like I push the baby out of my vagina. Like I can do everything, right? Like,
so true.
And
it's empowering. Yeah.
And I see that in you. I feel like there's nothing that can scare you now. Like you are so deeply rooted in your faith. Like you are at a point in your life where you really know who you are, what you believe in. And out of this, I can see you like shine and take on challenges. Like it's incredible. Like in your photography work, like there's so much that has been going on. You've been like singing with a rock band a couple of weeks ago. Like there's really like nothing that scares you now. Like it still has. There are still hard days, right? Like I know, like I love you so much. Like from my perspective, I really see you shine. I know, like all of the time. I know that you still have hard days and not everything is like unicorns and roses and stuff. But I do see like how how much it brought to you. And thinking about that, like, is there something you would like to tell yourself like a couple of years back, or someone who's listening to this? Like, I'm thinking of like, I don't know. I think that there are a lot of women out there. I'm thinking of women not more now. Like, I'm sure there are also men, gay women, like a lot of people out there who feel like something is not right. Like, but I really need this community. I'm a part of it. It's so important to me. But I can tell that I cannot, like, I know that some of the things that I believe I wouldn't be allowed to say. And some of the things that I believe would be considered heresy. Is that the word?
Yeah.
And, or like the devil's work, or however you want to call it. And they will like push that down, but I can feel that it's going somewhere, right? Like they're like, in my opinion, like, or in my head, like feels like poisoning yourself in a way. Like I don't know it from this context, but when I don't let myself express what's in me, like it will come out in other ways, in sickness, in conflict, in all kinds of ways. If someone is listening to this who feels like, oh gosh, this is exactly what I'm feeling, but I don't want to do this. I don't want to this hard road. Like, is there any words of encouragement or anything that you would like to leave for someone who feels like that right now?
Oh yeah, I have like a total what do you call it? Like imposter syndrome. Like I don't want to speak for all this because I feel like comparatively, like I feel like it's so. I know obviously for me it's big. It was big, but yeah, there are people out there going through like so many more like intense experiences and more in danger. I would say like I wasn't in. Well, I mean, I don't know. I might have been in physical danger at some point. Somebody might have like wanted to beat me up, but it didn't happen. But like, there are some people that are really going through like, like as in what the decision they would make would uproot everything. And at least, like I said, I still had these anchors. And I guess to those people, like I never would want to like minimize or go like, just do it. Like, there is no message for like, it's not easy really. But like, all I can say is, as much as you have to give up and sacrifice, what you receive on the other end is abundantly like so much more than what you would have had keeping yourself small and keeping yourself like nice and docile and in a cage. Like that's what I would just say. It's like, I think the journey, I cannot promise will be like, it might be awful. Like mine was awful, and mine was not even as bad as some of other people like could be, where they were really faced with like major discrimination and like really kicked out of entire systems where they were, families and whatever. But I still would say to that person, I still would say like, just go right on through it. Like keep going right on through it and don't stop. Because like, the kind of self-assurance and just the happiness that I can access is like nothing that I would ever, like I would do the whole thing again, as horrible as it was. Like in a second, I would be like, yep, do it all again, have the entire thing happen like that. Of course, I would do some things different, right? But the whole situation is as terrible as it was. I was like, the stuff that I could gain, the self-assurance that I could gain, the freedom that I could gain during this process, I'm like, just do it. And I really do believe what you put out into the world, like there you will attract it back. So I just would say like you being authentically like yourself and like really who you are and like being really forthcoming with like what you think and what you believe, that is the only way to find your people. Because if you are like censoring yourself or like making yourself smaller or, for whatever reason, like you will not find your people. Like they will not, you cannot find those people because you're going to find some other fake versions of the other people that are also like pretending or having masks. And I never want to like say I'm not like arrived here. Okay. Like I'm still trying. And like, I don't want to give the impression that like, I'm some kind of like, yes, I know exactly what's going on. I was like, I know the heck I'm doing day to day for the most part. I'm like, what is happening? But this is like my goal. It's like to be more like this. Because and I just like to see people like fully like anchored in themselves and who they are. And like, I think does so much for other people to be able to see this, like give them the courage to also do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just doing this for myself. Like, I often think, oh, it's so cheesy, but like, it's, I think I told you guys about this. I love The Greatest Showman. It's one of my favorite movies. And they did this like The Greatest Showman Reimagined soundtrack. And Missy Elliott has like one line that I do think about often, like really. And that's, that you kick down doors for others to walk through. And I really do think about this when I think about something hard that I'm going through. I'm like, you know what? This is just making space for someone else to just be just as freaking weird or crazy, or like try and test and question. Like, and for my kids also, like my daughter, especially, like she's, 10. I'm like, the things that I let myself do and give myself permission for in life, and don't hold back and really like go down the weird dark road and be like, I don't know what's at the end, but like this gives every single person in my life around me also permission to be like, well, if she can do it, like, I guess maybe I can do this like small step here or whatever. And it's not just for you, like it's for everyone in your life around you. It's for your children. It's for like your mothers, like my mom, the transformation that I also saw in her. I have to be thankful because my mom was like really encouraging and was like, this is freaking crazy. Like, what the heck is going on? And always had a lot of trust in me. And in my like, in my inner compass, and like in the spirit of God that I like have within me. And yeah, I don't know. I want to be that person for people because I have, for instance, you and other dear friends that do that for me, right? Like starting the podcast, like this gives me like inspiration and the things that I want in my life, like I can reach them through other people's steps, like, and it's the kind of like leg up that each of us need. Like we cannot just do this on our own. And yeah, and we have of course such a stable hold, right? Like our families that love us, our women around us, like that has really given me the ability to be able to do this. So yeah, find your people and find those people that will do that for you, and your hype people in life, like cling on them for dear life, because those are your people, and they will be the ones to give you the push up to like to be who you really are. And even if 80-90% of people aren't with you, the 10% that you have are going to be like 100% your people, and that is like, yeah, it's just such a treasure. And yeah, and that's like priceless,
Thank you so much. That was such beautiful last words. I don't want to add anything to that. That's amazing. I hope people get to hear that. I hope if you're out there and you need to hear these messages, that you can find this, that God will send this to you, or the universe, or whoever it is.
I believe it, and I experienced it. And again, even sometimes if you don't even have hope in it, like I just believe God is good. Like He will bring things to people, like if you are open to receive it. I really feel, I don't know, I just have confidence in like the goodness of people. And I know there's a lot of bad, but like I have more confidence in the goodness of people, and also of course the goodness of God.
Wow, what a powerful conversation. I hope Leigh's journey inspires you to trust yourself and your path, no matter how uncertain it may feel. If you want to see more of Leigh's beautiful work, you can find her at Doula Heart Photography. She captures motherhood, birth, and family moments with so much heart and depth, just like she does with her words. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more conversations like this. Until next time, take care and be your own life doula.